Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. Hopefully you're having a great Monday. Welcome to another episode 6 of Conducting Perspectives. We're going to be talking about concert programming. I'm Lieutenant Michael Flynn with the United States Air Force Band of the West, based out of San Antonio, Texas. It is beautiful out today. It is hot out here in San Antonio. Welcome. It's wonderful to see Margaret Flynn, Aaron Flynn, Chito Samila, hopefully I'm saying that correctly, from the Philippines. Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us. If you're joining us and you're just tuning in, this is a fantastic stream where we talk about all kinds of stuff for music and conducting and audience perspective, which is what we're going to focus on today. So if you're joining now, please go ahead and put it in the comments section. Let us know where you're watching from. Let us know how you're doing, and I hope everything is great for you. So today we're going to be talking about concert programming. How does it work? From two perspectives. One of which, if you're a conductor, so if you're watching this video and you're a conductor, maybe you're looking for some ideas about how I go through the concert programming process. Another perspective is from the audience member, so that you understand how this music comes to be. You say, well, how do they pick this music? It must be simple. They just go to some website and find it out. Well, actually, this is going to be kind of taking you through the process, and hopefully we don't get too much into the weeds and keep everybody on track and say, oh, that's really interesting. Next time I go to a concert, I'll think about how they put this together and how the decision-making process goes. So again, welcome. Watching from Cape Cod. Yeah, Cape Cod's a beautiful part of the world. So thanks for checking out the stream. And again, if you're just checking in, go ahead and write in where you're watching from. It helps us understand who we're communicating with and who we're talking to. From the Netherlands, fantastic. Welcome. What time is it over there? So 3 in the afternoon here. Hopefully it's not too late, and hopefully you're having a great day over there as well. So concert programming, Michael Flynn with the United States Air Force Band of the West. Let's get into it. Overall concept, we're going to be talking about considerations, items of inclusion, the process, and then I'm going to go through a sample program of middle school and high school and how I reached the idea for those programs. Now, those aren't going to be end-all programs. It's making a lot of assumptions about what the band is going to be and what the makeup is and how many people you have and the ability level, but it'll give you an idea about the process and kind of how it works. So we're going to talk about the overall concept of programming first of all. And it goes 2200. Well, thanks for checking it out. Really hope you're enjoying it. And if you have questions, go ahead and post in the comments section. If you have questions about the concert programming or how we as conductors look at programming, or if I'm covering something and a question comes up, put it in the comments and I'll be able to answer it as we go. Or if you're watching this on replay, put it in the comments, or you can contact me at conductingquestions@gmail.com. As you can see in the email here, I got a lot of questions last week, and hopefully I answered those really well. For those of you who had those questions, put those questions in that comment through the Gmail, and we'll be able to say, this is what we're thinking about. Or if you have an idea about what we're going to be doing next week, we're going to be talking about a piece that someone actually emailed me and said, hey, how about this one? So we're glad to be covering those concepts for you. Overall concept of a concert program. So a bow tie. Again, the two triangles that kind of shape like this. So you have a big start, and then it kind of mellows out and maybe changes the mood to something different, and then a big finish. So you have something at the beginning to capture everyone's attention, or an opener, and something at the end to capture everybody's attention as well as a closer. And so those are the overall concepts of a concert. Now, they don't all have to be shaped that way. Think about it as loud, soft, loud. That's certainly one way to do it. You can also start off as just a triangle, starting off the concert really soft and having the whole thing get louder as you go. Or you can go the other way as well. So there's lots of options for how we can look at concert programming. Middle school band and orchestra teacher, fantastic. We're gonna actually be talking about some middle school options here. Thank you for joining us. If you have questions or maybe input that you have about the middle school ideas, let us know in the comments section. That would give me a chance to interact with you. Thank you so much for watching. Michelle Smith. So, concert information, beginning steps. Concert information. This is the who, what, where, when, and how. So, who is the concert for? Who's playing in the concert? What level group is it? Who is this going to be mostly for parents, or is this going to be some type of a competition? If you're not familiar, a lot of times they'll have festival concerts, or they have some type of judging concerts where the band will go and play for these panel of judges who give feedback. And that's a different audience than if you're playing, for instance, a holiday concert for mostly parents or guardians, right? So where is the concert? Is it inside? Is it outside? Is it in a small space? Is it in a large space? All of these items change what you're doing in terms of programming. When? Is it going to be in the middle of the day outside? Is it going to be at nighttime? Is it in a specific part of the year? Is it, we're talking right now about a July 4th program. Does a July 4th program have different expectations for the players, for the audience members, than a concert perhaps very close to the beginning of the new year? Perhaps those two concerts have different ideas. How is this happening? Is this something that you have 6 weeks to prepare for? Is this something you have 2 weeks to prepare for? Is this a concert festival where you're going in as a guest clinician and you've got 18 hours of concert rehearsal and then a concert at the end of that? So all of these items are ones that are informational, in pieces of information that you're taking and putting together to have kind of a blanket of, this is what we're going to be doing. It's like you got a picnic, and then you spread out the blanket first, and then, okay, now I'm going to put this item here and this item here, something like that. So you have a ground level of what is happening. So all of those things go into the concert programming, and hopefully it makes you think about, oh, well, if it was going to be a concert near the holiday season, or maybe near 4th of July, there's other expectations for the concert programming. So I always start with brainstorming, and this for me starts with putting down pieces of music that I would like to do for these levels of ensembles. So for instance, or the first example I'm going to show you is 2 examples from the United States Air Force Band of the West concert programming, where the first couple of pieces are the ones that we're looking at and trying to fit into. It's like a little puzzle you're trying to complete. I start with the players and the instrumentation. So general, who is going to be in the ensemble? So for me, for the United States Air Force Band of the West, they're absolutely top quality professional musicians. So I don't have to think about like, oh, maybe I have a really weak clarinet player. Oh, maybe I have a really weak oboe player. But those are considerations that you might look into for your own band, is that if I want to do this piece, but there's a giant oboe solo and either my oboe player isn't so great, or perhaps you don't have an oboe player, are there ways around that to still program that particular piece? Resources to stay current. Where do you start? Well, luckily for us, there's a lot of state lists. So that there's Texas state lists and Massachusetts state lists. And if you Google state lists for competition pieces, they will give you a starting point for what is actually trending in the performance world right now at the competition level. And that certainly gives you an idea, not only for the pieces that are available, but also the composers that are composing at this time. Or perhaps composers who have works that they've published years and years ago that are still being performed. And those lists are a great way to start. Also, if you go to YouTube and you look up Texas Bandmasters Association concerts and you look up the high schools or the middle schools that are playing these pieces, these are items, and they'll usually have a date, 2018, 2019. I start there and I think, okay, what's happening right now in these concert programs? Also, if you go to like the Midwest Clinic, and you go to their online program database, and you can look through what high schools are doing or what colleges are doing or what middle schools are doing. These are all items that you can use to stay current in your programming. I put the danger of a type in there because as musicians, we all have music that we like the best. This music I want to do no matter what. I really, really, really want to do this. Mike Ghostman, thank you for checking this out. Hope you're doing really well. I follow you on Facebook and catch up with all the wonderful things with your ensembles. Welcome. If you have any input into this information, this discussion, talking about programming, put it up in their comment section. I know you can be a useful resource for everybody who's watching. Thank you so much for checking us out. So we all have our favorite thing. So Mike has got his favorite type of piece of music, my type of favorite piece of music, and if you only look at that piece of music and only look at that one composer, you can find yourself falling into a rut of only doing this type of music. Say your favorite music is Star Wars music. Then if the only thing you start every concert with is Star Wars, it becomes old and the students don't really like it. And it's like, oh, well, they're doing that piece again. I know they like that style, but I think they should branch out. So Stay away from getting into your type. So this is what I start with in terms of the Air Force concerts. At the very top of the page here, you see on the very top left-hand corner, you've got Fiesta. So this is a concert which has since been moved to November in San Antonio, but it's a fiesta that happens in the city of San Antonio. And the concerts happen all over the place, and the United States Air Force Band of the West does their own concert to celebrate this Fiesta Festival in San Antonio. So this is what the first element of what I'm doing looks like. And so you look like this and it says, all right, well, I knew I liked, at the top there, you can see Street Tango by Piazzolla, arranged Longfield. I knew I really liked that piece. Spanish Dance by Shostakovich, arranged Kurnow. Symphonic Dance No. 3 by Clifton Williams. You can see kind of a trend of this type of music that we're trying to put into this fiesta party festival. And there's lots of choices up in there, including tributes to our World War II and Spanish March, which is really good. Pepita Greus, which is Jovi, which is a really fantastic piece. Hymn Song of Philip Bliss. You've got lots of stuff that I'm just kind of putting out there. All the while I'm thinking about the players and thinking about the type of ensemble I'm going to be doing. Underneath there, you see actually HI. That's for a concert in Hawaii, which has actually since been moved as well to October, that I was going to be guest conducting at. And I was looking at this one. This particular one had a theme to it, and the theme that was given to me as a guest conductor was Peace, Life, Victory, and Valor, World War II. And so I looked through a bunch of music that I would really enjoy to do for this type of music programming. So lots of things like you've got Flag of Stars there by Jacob. You've got Outdoor Overture by Aaron Copland. In Heaven's Air, Beyond the Higher Skies by Sheldon. American Elegy by Kelly. So you've got some nice things in there that represent what the concert's all about. And this is kind of what that concert programming for the Band of the West, this professional group, looks like. So how do we look through it for middle school band and high school band? So considerations that I have that I'm looking for while I'm doing the brainstorming and what I'm going to be thinking about in terms of the programming. The musicians, strengths, weaknesses, and numbers. Are we going to have an ensemble that has 100 trumpets and 4 flutes, or is it going to be something a little bit different? So looking at those groups of instruments and where the instruments happen in the music. So if you're saying like this piece, it requires 4 flute soloists and you only have 2 flute players, well, maybe there's something to consider there. How do you adjust to that, or maybe program something different? Something that I always look for is expansion of musical vision. So this item of the idea of exercising the musical thoughts of the players. How can I present some music that will make the ensemble players think about their playing in a new, perhaps innovative way? The venue and the audience, what's the purpose? Is it a festival, competition, outdoor festival? Length. How long is the concert going to be? How far in advance do I have to think about programming? Is this going to be an hour and a half concert? Is this a 30-minute concert? Things like that. Question in the chat here. Should you find out ahead of time if the venue is going to provide any of the equipment you might need for your performance? Absolutely. So in terms of if you were a guest performer, if a guest conductor, I would call ahead to the organizers and say, how much percussion equipment are you going to be providing? Are you providing chairs and stands? Are you providing anything else in terms of items? So if you're looking at, are there going to be bass drums, a snare drum, cymbal, timpani? So I've gone to do middle school festivals where they say, listen, the only thing we have here is a set of timpani and a xylophone and crash cymbals. And then that affects your programming dramatically. Absolutely. So if you're doing this from your own perspective and you are a band director, you would know these items ahead of time, and you'd know, okay, well, I know that I only have one xylophone, so I have to think of ways around programming for certain these ideas. This is not an exhaustive list. This is just a starting point, somewhere to start for you. Items of inclusion. What do I want to include into the program? Something that's classic, some classic band repertoire piece. It's a standard of band repertoire. Now, although it's not the end-all list of it, if you go to some publishing sites, they will actually have a section within their site that says, classic repertoire. And sometimes the publishers are just putting the information in there. But if you go to the classic repertoire and then you see that it's listed on 10 different states' lists for their competition pieces, perhaps that's something that you can check out. Something that's brand new, something that's innovative. A transcription. I always look for transcriptions because transcription is where band repertoire really first started, other than the march. So you've got transcriptions where people were looking for band music and they needed to find something to play. They took orchestral music that the audiences were already familiar with and then programmed it into the band world. So Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, hey, let's do that for band. The audiences will love it. They recognize it already. So transcriptions is really important. Emotional pieces, I put in there parentheses slow, not always slow. There's going to be a piece we're going to talk about later that has an emotional impact. So there is an element of maybe we'll do some slow pieces. It's not just to add variety to the audience perspective, it's to teach the musicians to have a different experience in terms of their own playing. It's a totally different type of playing when you have to sustain a note for a really long time and have direction to it, instead of playing a march where a lot of the stuff happens very, very quickly. I put tune in there, not intonation, but rather having some type of a tune that the audience or the participants in the ensemble can recognize, something that you can tap your foot to, something that you can leave humming. And it doesn't have to be something, for instance, like Shenandoah or Simple Gifts that I talked about last week in Conducting Perspectives, episode 5, where the audience would say, oh, I know that one. Rather, a piece that has a tune that is catchy or something that can be latched onto by the audience. I think that helps a lot of times. The audience really, really, really desperately wants to enjoy the music, wants to feel included, and the way you can do that is make some decisions about what they're going to be listening to along the way. Diversity of composers, not all by the same composer, and having a diverse selection of items. There are so many talented composers out there writing wonderful music. You can have people from different regions, different countries, different ethnicities, and you can move items around in your program to feature a variety of different types of composers. Diversity of composers. And it's so nice because when you have a diverse set of composers, frequently you'll also have a diverse program because you have lots of music coming from different sources, different individuals' ideas about what they want to present. So again, these are just not a beginning list of items, not exhaustive by any means, but just kind of a starting list for where you can think of in your own programming. So if you're watching this and you're a band director, go ahead in the comment section and let me know any of these items that maybe I've missed, or maybe you think that should be included on this list. Or maybe items that you say, oh, well, I never have a march in my program. Oh, how come? I'm curious to know why. And march is in there too. It's one of the standards of the band repertoire, also the standards of where the band comes from. So a lot of times you'll actually have bands that are expected to perform marches. For instance, with the United States Air Force Band, you might be expected to hear Stars and Stripes or something like that at the end. A military band playing a military type style march. Or you're going to be doing the Armed Forces Salute. Perhaps that's something that's included in there for the same thing. Soloist, what an excellent idea. Laura, thank you for checking out the stream. A soloist, that is not on that list, but it is absolutely something that should be featured. A lot of things on this list, and it's a fantastic idea. And I know the delay is just a little bit slight here, but let me know what you think about it as well. Having a soloist is a totally different way of the instrumentalist in the ensemble interacting with a featured soloist. Frequently, soloists can be a wonderful way of inspiring your ensemble. So say you're doing a middle school band performance and you're going to bring in a professional clarinetist to play a clarinet soloist, or a professional vocalist, a professional bassoon player. And that's the first time they hear an instrument like that played so brilliantly live. It's a fantastic idea to have a soloist in there. Thank you for pointing that out, Laura. I really, really appreciate that. And let me know what you think about that. Another comment in here, diverse program makes for a diverse audience, reaches out to more people. Absolutely. You think about including different things in the program, different ways of bringing the audience in. There was a concert program that I was looking at when I was doing my preparation for this stream. That was something I did in Wyoming, when I was teaching at a university there, and I included Radiohead in part of the program, Maynard Ferguson in part of the program, and also a piece about Moby Dick in the program. So bringing different people in from different aspects of your society, saying, oh, I might be interested in that. I've read Moby Dick. I'll check that out. Or I've heard of Radiohead, which is a pop group, I guess, pop-ish group, and maybe I've heard of that. Or Maynard Ferguson, oh, I've heard of music by him, and that's something like that is something that you can include in the programming, and to reach out and bring in different types audience members. Absolutely. Okay, so as we go through here comes the process again. And in a second, I'll take it through and look through options for middle school and high school, and the band directors who are watching, or non-band directors who are watching. I'd be really interested in your thoughts on the pieces that I've kind of selected and filtered out. So you have the brainstorming. Commissions are another idea. This is where you go and you hire somebody to write a piece of music for your ensemble. And this is a way to promote brand new music. And it's not always really, really expensive. There's a great Facebook page on this right now where there's a band commission people who are just getting started, and you can try out this new music. And what a wonderful experience for you as the conductor and your students or musicians to play music that has never been performed before. It's a fantastic opportunity to keep on the cutting edge of this type of music that is happening in the field right now, and also give people an idea about how to perform brand new music that's never been played before. After I go through the brainstorming part of it, I go through again and organize it by length, difficulty, and instrumentation. And this goes back to the idea, if I'm only going to have one oboe player and there's a piece that absolutely requires English horn and 2 oboe players, maybe I have to scratch that off the list for now. But I keep it on my list anyway later on, so maybe I can reuse that piece at another time. I go through and I look at the difficulty. And if you we talked a lot about diversity of the programming, diversity of difficulty level is important too. So you can't always have every single piece be the most difficult thing that every player has to play, because they're so concentrated on getting all the notes that they're eliminating the ideas of some of the musicality. There has to be kind of an ebb and flow of the programming for the player as well, so that you don't end up playing the trumpet and it's like, okay, now I'm going to play this thing, it's the hardest thing I've played in my life, followed immediately by the next hardest thing I've played in my life, followed immediately by the next hardest thing. It gets exhausting for the player. And if it's exhausting for the player, it's likely exhausting for the audience. That players need a little bit of a breather as well in there in terms of the difficulty of the pieces. A lot of times I'll always put together a tentative program, and I think about balancing those ideas. And again, if you're one of those band directors who has some input in here, let me know what you think. I balance this, try to balance the program, think about if I'm going to use a bow tie format for the program or not. Flow and listen, or flow and thinking through the music if you're not somebody who uses lots of recordings. Listening to the program yourself, if there's recordings of every piece, or if there's recordings for half the pieces and you think through and conduct through the rest of it. The process of going through the entire program yourself, listening to the whole thing, can be really telling. You're like, wow, that part in the middle is really boring. Well, maybe you should move it around. And why is it boring? Ask the question, why am I having these emotional reactions to this? Or is it boring because I'm a trumpet player and I don't really like listening to the bassoon pieces? Or is it boring because there's 3 slow pieces all in a row and there needs to be a little bit more variety, right? Spice of life, right? And a little more variety in the programming. Listen to your concert. Think through your concert and take the time to do so. It takes a long time. If you're programming an hour concert, listen to an hour of your music, or concentrate in your brain and create that concert in your brain and think through it that way. Spend the time to do it. You'll be surprised how much information you can get from that. Adjust and evaluate. I always go through and adjust. Frequently I'll go through and say, listen, I really, really want to do this piece. And then perhaps that becomes the cornerstone of that program. And then things are kind of spread out around it and making those adjustments to help make that work. I put repeat in there because I do this over and over and over again for every concert. So for example, even the 2 concerts the mock concerts we're going to be talking about today, that represents hours and hours and hours of thinking through it. Don't wait till the last second to program. It ends up with bad concerts. Think it through. Give the program time to settle. If you at all can, allow the program to settle and then say, okay, now I want to reevaluate this and take another look at it. So we've talked about the process here. Let's take through a middle school example. So this is my brainstorming piece, and don't worry, this is not all in my own little writing manuscript. I actually put it into a Word document here in a second, so you can take a look at that. But this gives you an idea about kind of what I'm looking at, the middle school honor band. And I'm assuming that this is a fantastic, fantastic middle school honor band, and I have all of the every element, every percussion instrument, every instrument that I could ever want. So this is ideal situation. Again, this is not saying that you should go put this program with your middle school band. This is saying, hey, this is how my process works. Perhaps you can take a couple of steps of the process and help your own process along here. Nicole, thank you so much for checking out the stream. As a musician, go ahead and put in the comments section if you think about anything that you'd like to see in your concert programming as you go through this. So thanks a lot for checking that out. And if you haven't checked out Nicole Pompey's video that was aired actually on the local news channel with You've Got a Friend in Me with the 4 split screen of the bassoon quartet, is fantastic. Please go ahead and check it out. It is on the Band of the West Facebook page. So we've also got in here, we've got Lo How a Rose Ever Blooming, Blue Ridge Reel, Old Churches, Canto, and Macbeth, and you can go through. There's a couple things in here. How did I put together this list? Well, there's a number of items that I looked at that I pulled from a competition list, and a couple of items that I looked at that I pulled from composers that I really, really respect and think that they're wonderful, like Michael Colgrass. Now, Old Churches is a very, it's a level 2 piece, so it's really for this specific age grouping. And something that's unique is that Michael Colgrass writes really, really, really hard music for college and professional ensembles. So it's really cool that he's written a piece for the middle school band, which is why I included it in here. Slavonic Folk Suite, that's something that has a historical and folk song aspect to it. Moscow 1941 also has a historical element. And I go through it, I talk through this list to myself, and I look at how this can be concentrated and organized. So the next step looks like this. On the left side of your screen, you've got something that looks like a middle school honor band. And the numbers down the left is the timing, so that's how long the piece is. You've got the title, you've got the composer, the arranger, and you've got the grade level. So the grade level is going to be something that is a classification of how hard the music is, essentially. And also in parentheses, I have like a little 1 or 2 word description about what the piece is. So for example, you see Lo How a Rose is arranged by Kirchner. It's grade 2-ish. It's lyric. So now I know that that is how that fits together. And you can look kind of through that list, and on the right-hand side, you can see the tentative program. So if you just look at the right-hand side and you just look at the stuff in the parentheses, that's going to give you a general idea of the flow of the concert. You've got an opener, which is, this is like a fast foot stomping kind of party piece. Then you've got Color of August by Wataru Hokoyama, and if you haven't checked out that composer, it's fantastic stuff. This is a tonal challenge, which means that it's not something that perhaps the audience or the band members would have had lots of experience with, and it has lots of percussion. Followed up by a folk song suite by Alfred Reed. It's got some traditional historical and tonal elements of it that are difficult. Then you've got Ancient Conquest by J. Coles, which is a grade level 2, which has a tonal challenge that has lots of percussion. And then you have Bells of Freedom, so it's got a kind of an Americana. You've got a tribute to our troops idea, followed by Groovy, which is by Richard Saucedo, and which is definitely a barn burner to send the audience off and have them tapping their foot by the end of it. So this gives you an idea about how the overall arc is. You got about 26 minutes of music. In between the pieces, you might talk about the piece for a minute and say, oh, this piece was originally intended, or whatever. And so that's like a 30, 35, 40-minute program, which for middle school is about as much as you're going to be able to do, especially with an honor band. So again, you've got something where it opens with a spark. You've got a slow piece. Then you've got a folk tune piece, which is something that many of the audience members would recognize, at least the tune or the idea of a folk tune. Ancient Conquest, which brings in tonal ideas from long ago in terms of percussion, which is really cool. Then you've got the Bells of Freedom, which is people after that kind of tonal challenge where they're using like things to bang on and pots and pans and things like that. Then you got Bells of Freedom. It's got pieces of American folk tunes in there as well. It's a fantastic piece. It brings the audience back. Then you've got the Groovy, which is again a foot tapping barn burner that sends you out the door. And so that's kind of the process of going through. Now you look into the column on the left, you say, well, is the column on the left something that is just useless, nobody's ever going to use it? No, but perhaps it doesn't fit into this program. I also always keep my column on the left in a document so that if any of the things on the right-hand side don't work or need to be adjusted, I can pull from that. For example, that old churches piece, it's also a kind of a slowish piece with very innovative. It could be easily substituted in for ancient conquest within a 1.5-minute time frame of itself. So hopefully this gives you an idea about a middle school program that you might program for an honor band festival and how that works. Now looking at high school, this is a high school honor band. And something that I always like to do with a high school honor band is have a piece that perhaps they may not be able to do in their own small band at home. So this is something where you might have 15 players from 10 different bands come and you play, and you got 150 piece band, and you all play together. And so things like that may not be quite as approachable is things like Movement for Rosa, which is a piece about Rosa Parks and by Mark Camphouse. It's a fantastic piece of music that requires lots of instruments and lots of percussion, that if you have a large honor band, you can put that together. Symphony No. 1 by Buckfitch. This is actually a dedication piece, or I guess it's a piece that is about the bombing of Dresden, Germany, and the last page of it is a different type of score that the students would never have seen before. I like to use that as well. Symphony No. 1, which is Lord of the Rings, which is by Demai, which is something else I like to program in this situation, because although it's not the music from the film The Lord of the Rings, the music is movie-like, and you can hear the different characters, and this is something else that gets the players really, really excited about. Other ideas that I like to put in here is elements that are new pieces, like Rocket Ship by Kevin Day. It's fantastic work. It's really exciting. It uses new types of percussion, and it mixes kind of pop music, beats, and items into the composition in a way that's very, very, very well crafted. It's a wonderful piece. Classics like the First Suite by Holst. You might want to be putting that in there, that people have a chance to program this music. Also in here you have new music, such as you've got Forward by Wataru Hokuyama. Again, this wonderful composer. New music, this is an international composer, different style of type of music that the students or audience or performers may all be interested in. So breaking this down a little bit further, you've got the times on the left, you've got the titles, you've got the composer, then you've got the grades. You can see all of these are grades 3 or 4. And it also has that little description of what you're looking at in terms of a brief description. Historical emotional percussion, historical emotional innovative percussion, multi-movement percussion. So there's a lot of ideas about how you can integrate variety into your programming just by a couple of ideas. So you might say, how do you know that these have innovative percussion? So fortunately for us, a lot of the publishing websites have preview scores so that you can use for perusal only. And you can look through that and you can see, and part of the purpose is to see, wow, I really like that piece of music, but my band only has 3 trumpets. Can I do it? And then you can look at the score and it says 3 trumpets. Yeah, we can do that. Also, there's lots of recordings of these pieces. So if you're interested in doing it and you're, wow, this piece sounds great, the percussion sounds great, how many percussionists does it need? And then you look into the score and you realize that it's possible for you to do. So if you're looking through this list and you say, how do you come up with all of these composers? Well, you go through and you look at the state lists, and then you look at the CBDNA, which is College Band Directors National Association concert lists, or you go through the Texas Bandmasters Association high school, middle school performances. You start seeing composers return and their names, see these pieces again and again and again, and then you do some research. And this does take quite a bit of time. This is something that you have to invest in, because when you're looking at programming, not only are you picking which pieces you are going to play, the pieces you are going to play are determining which pieces you've said, no, I don't want to do those. And that's a huge decision, because there's so many things that you have to pick from that you have to say, well, listen, I'm just not going to do these pieces. Now, there has to be some reason for that, and that reason must be spectacular, because the way that you program will define who you are as a conductor, define what those ensembles sound like. And you're not only choosing what you get to experience, but also what the players get to experience. Why is this piece so good that the players get to experience this and not experience the other ones that I've said, no, I don't want to play that? Or what makes this piece so good that the audience gets to experience it? So it's for you and for the musicians in the ensemble, expanding their musical ideas and musical thinking, and also for the audience. Now, if you're programming and you want to do new pieces, you want to do innovative pieces, you want to do pieces that require lots of innovative percussion elements, not only do you have to educate yourself about how those sound, but also the ensemble and the audience as well. So if you have an audience who's expecting the same thing over and over again, and you want to just throw in a couple of little things that are new, that might be like, oh, wow, that's kind of weird, but I kind of like it. You have to educate the audience into accepting those as part of your programming. So programming is something that I take a lot of time doing. It takes a long process. It starts with brainstorming, organizing by your length, difficulty, instrumentation. You have tentative programming, balancing it over and over again, the flow of the program, listening to what your program is going to be like, and giving the program time to settle. Overall, you've got the considerations, musicians, the strengths, weaknesses, the numbers. How do you expand their musical vision? How do you expand the musical thought of the players, exercising the musical thought, trying out, demanding new things, more challenging items, allow them to grow as musicians. The venue, the audience, the purpose. Is it festival? Is it competition? Is it outdoors? The length. And these are just starting points. And the bottom line in programming is not only are you deciding what pieces to play, but you've decided which pieces not to play. So the pieces you've chosen are so special that you feel comfortable saying, I believe in this music so desperately that I can say, you know what, this other music can wait. This music is the most important. And I think that that's the special element of programming that takes the most time and weighs on my mind the most, is that you're choosing not to do something else. So what you choose must be well thought. You have to think through it because you're choosing not to do something else. And you're not just for you, but for your players, for your audience. So we're going to skip through a bunch of these slides to go to the end. And if you have questions, comments, thoughts, conductingquestions@gmail.com. Thank you so much for checking out this stream. This has been Conducting Perspectives Episode 6 with Lieutenant Michael Flynn with the United States Air Force Band of the West based out of San Antonio, Texas. I'm going to be talking about Kentucky 1800 by Claire Grundman next Monday at 3 o'clock. And this is by request through these emails. We've gotten some great ideas, and someone said, please check out this email. I said, absolutely. Check out this piece. I said, absolutely. This is a piece based on American folk songs. It's grade 3. It's very approachable. And we're talking about that from a perspective of, I just got the piece, to how am I going to rehearse it and conduct it? Also, this week, if you're looking for really great content, on Friday, Airman First Class Rose Valby is going to be talking about fundamentals of horn playing right here on the Facebook page for the Band of the West. Please check that out if you're interested. And it's going to be talking about, well, if your teacher's not here, how do I practice my French horn? What do I start with? There's going to be music and interaction that you can do with the performer. She's a fantastic horn player, and it's a wonderful opportunity to work with such a great professional. So go ahead and check that out. It's coming up Friday. If you haven't, go ahead and liked and followed the Band of the West Facebook page. Go ahead and do that. We have new products and music ideas coming out almost every day. Fantastic work. It's been a pleasure to talk to you today. Fantastic interaction. And again, if you have questions, go ahead and write them into conductingquestions@gmail.com. And if you have pieces that you'd like for me to talk about, write them in at that email address as well. Thank you so much for checking out this stream, and we'll see you next week.